So last night I stayed up watching the Bethesda Game Day live panel thing, chatting with some of the viewers. But if you didn't manage to join me and you want a quick summary of what my thoughts are, I thought I'd present them here right now. They started with a panel talking about Fallout 76. Now this is a game I'm still not particularly interested in playing right now, but it's good to keep up to date with what's happening, and of course maybe I'll try it at a later date. Maybe it will get more interesting to me and I will try it. But more than anything, I was trying to gauge how things were going, how they feel they're doing in that game, and whether or not this is the sort of game we're going to be seeing more of or less of. I didn't really get a lot of information from it personally. If you are a Fallout 76 player, it may be worth going and watching the full thing. They did talk about some of the updates that are coming, some of the content that will be there. But to be honest, what I got from that panel was a feeling of reservation from the panel. They felt very sedated, like not particularly enthusiastic, a little nervous perhaps. Now I believe this may well be the first time Todd Howard has done a public event since Fallout 76, and I have to say, he didn't look his usual sort of dynamic self. He didn't look full of confidence the way we normally sort of see him on stage at E3 events, that sort of thing. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. It did feel a little, low energy in comparison to what came afterwards. Because that's the thing. When the Elder Scrolls 25th Anniversary panel started, Todd Howard was there again, as was Pete Hines and various other people. But everyone was far more relaxed, far more energetic, far more cheerful and sort of jokey. I felt a lot more energy from that. And that panel I really enjoyed watching. I mean, there was a lot of nostalgia, a ton of nostalgia, and it was great to sort of to see them talk about things and how they were and how they are now. Overall, I actually enjoyed that discussion quite a lot. However, for concrete information, I have to say, really not a lot I can tell you. Todd Howard did mention that they will not be talking about Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield at this year's E3, which means the earliest we're going to see Starfield is 2020. And the way he was talking, he was sort of saying, look, it's these games are a long way off.
And before everyone asks, please be patient. It's going to be a long time. It's not something we're going to be talking about at E3, either of those games this year. And so patience.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see Starfield being released like 2021 or something like that. Maybe even later, I don't know. And this means Elder Scrolls 6 is almost certainly going to be, quite a few years away. I would actually say 22, 23 at the earliest, at the absolute earliest. They are working on it. They did show some development with importing faces into the game, but we didn't see an awful lot beyond that. But what I did take away from that is we're going to be waiting a while. There were two other things that stood out to me that they discussed, and the first one was the low turnaround they have in their development team, at least in key posts, because they were talking about a lot of people who've been with them for sort of 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years. And that is reasonably unusual in a software developer and the game industry, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but they seemed proud of the fact that they keep people for a long time, and that is actually quite interesting. There's pros and cons to that, of course. If you don't get new blood in, you may well stagnate, and of course that is a criticism that has been thrown at them, especially from the technology point of view. People sort of want them to move with the times, get some more bells and whistles in their games. But of course, the plus side to this is it does mean you have people who are passionate about that company, about making the sort of games they are making, which is a good sign. It's going to depend how you take it. Do you want just complete fresh blood who brings new ideas and hopefully new competencies, or do you want passionate people who really want to make the Elder Scrolls games and maybe Fallout games? You know, I mean, it's sort of, you could take it either way, but I took it as a mostly positive thing. The other thing that I took away from it was the fact that they did discuss remasters. And normally when they get questioned about that, they're fairly adamant about, no, we always look forward to the next game, not the old games. But this time there seemed to be some kind of hedging. Like, they weren't saying absolutely not. They still, Todd Howard did sort of say, we kind of think that the old games stand on their own. And yes, they're a bit old and dated, but that's kind of half the fun, isn't it? But there were just some murmurs amongst them along the lines of, but if we did release a remastered one, we'd want to really sort of, bring it more up to date. And that, maybe it was just a throwaway comment. Maybe it was just them spitballing because they were feeling a little more relaxed.
But on the other hand, you realize, people would love a remaster of whatever game if it was really, really modernized.
So for the 50th anniversary, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm, again, probably reading too much into that, but it is something of interest, especially when you consider they are going to the E3 this year, and honestly, I'm not totally sure what they've got. I mean, I think BGS are going. I know Bethesda are going, but I think BGS are going as well. And if they're not going to be talking about Starfield, and they're not going to be talking about Elder Scrolls 6, that really does leave nothing but Fallout 76. And honestly, I'm not totally sure that's going to be the best idea. All things considered, if all they do is turn up and talk about Fallout 76, I sort of feel like that might be a bit of a letdown if BGS are going. So could they be releasing something else? Again, totally and utterly spitballing here. Don't want to get too hyped and excited, but it was one of the things that I took away. But honestly, by far the most interesting thing of the night for me, at the point at which I stopped watching once it was over, was the Rage 2 panel, which showed a lot more gameplay, basically. I mean, they discussed a few things, but it was mostly showing you the sort of ridiculous things you could do in that game, and it looks fantastic. It looks tons of fun. No real look at how much story there is and how long the campaign will be and whether or not the game's going to actually have much depth. But honestly, I'm not even 1,000% sure it needs depth. I know 1,000% sure that's ridiculous, but you know what I mean. I'm not. It looked so much fun to just run around fighting things. It kind of makes me think it might be a bit more like Doom. And, Doom has a story, yes, but honestly, Doom lives and dies on the fact that, well, you live and everything else dies, basically, doesn't it? I mean, it's gory, it's high octane, and Rage 2 really seems to have taken that to the next level with, well, what can only be described as hilarious ways to annihilate your enemies. I sort of described it as the first-person shooter equivalent of Mortal Kombat. It just seems to be an excuse to have a ton of death moves, and it probably makes me a terrible person, but I am so looking forward to it. There just seem to be loads of tricks and things you can do, and, yeah, alright, I'm a sick, twisted person. It looks brutal, it looks horrific, and it looks a ton of fun, and I'm totally looking forward to it. In fact, I've actually decided I'm going to play through Rage 1 just so that I've got the backstory in case there is much involvement with the story. So I may actually be streaming that, but that's a little off topic here. Basically, apart from the gameplay footage in Rage 2, the only concrete information I got from those panels really was the fact that Elder Scrolls 6 is a long way off, which was not a huge surprise, but is a tiny bit of a disappointment. Oh, also, Starfield is not coming this year. Not a huge surprise, but again, a small disappointment. Everything else I got from it is through inference, it's through just guessing, trying to read between the lines, and really can be more or less ignored, to be honest, as just pure guesswork at this point. There probably is a lot more information for people who are interested in Fallout 76, but even though I sat there listening to them, it just sort of washed over me. I'm failing to generate any interest for that game currently. Maybe that will change, but I'm not expecting it to be honest. So that's it. Those are my thoughts regarding the panels. It was kind of fun to listen to them and watch the Rage 2 stuff, and it was kind of fun to chat with the viewers as well. Had quite a lot of fun, even though by the end I was pretty exhausted. It was fairly late. So anyway, there you go. That's it. I'm going to leave you there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you guys next time.